done?
Yes, I was on the tractor. I was so glad that I did.
Do you need a pen? Yeah, I'm hoping, I always hope that I don't do it, it gets me anyway.
So the real question is, how was the family?
That was good. It was good. It was tense.
I always look and see, like, was I there? Like, I don't think I had to miss one.
Oh,
Yeah.
How did they get to fall through?
Very different.
Hey, Jim.
Recording in progress.
Phyllis make it home all right?
I did.
It was a hot night for a ride uphill.
Somehow Draper Road got steeper than I the last time. I came down to the concert last night.
Switch one of these days. You're going to love it. Thank you.
I feel like I have like levels of space today. I'm sorry it's not here today. And usually he's a close sitter, and I'm like, he's like creeps closer because he doesn't bring some stuff. So I'm like, the glasses.
Dave, is
How old are you? I might be here a while. So I I'm still
David, what's up?
I'm good. We've got a Ron and a Karen. They are, but
Cheyenne, are you all set? Okay, good. So, good evening, everyone. Happy, like I'm sure you are, to see the rain. I would like to call the meeting of July 18th of the Select Board to order at 5:35. First item on the agenda are the past Select Board minutes. I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes of July 5th.
I'll make a motion to accept the July 5th minutes.
Thank you, Mandy and Jim.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes.
Those minutes were excellent. Thank you very much. I liked how you identified everybody, their positions, and it just helps in understanding. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, I didn't have any changes.
I didn't have anything.
Jim, did you have any changes to that?
That's it.
Okay. All in favor of accepting the July 5th minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Going on to the orders / accounts payable up to today, July 18th. Again, I'll entertain a motion to accept them.
I'll make a motion that we pay the orders up to July 18th.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any comments?
Just looking through the packet, there were 2 line items for closing out trusts, but I just didn't
My
understand.
questions as well. Yeah.
For transfers out,
It was closing out trusts.
closing out Hartland Winter Trails, closing out the Hartland Volunteer Fire Department, both of which we moved out of our accounts. They now have their very own. So Hartland Winter Trails became a cooperative, their own 501c3. So they now have their money in their own account, and the fire department was and always has been a 501c3, so they have money in their account. Years back, we took it on for both of those, kind of a goodwill gesture, but it's not technically correct.
That was nice.
That's the question I had as well. Is there anything else? Okay. All in favor of accepting the / invoices up to 7/18, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye. Okay, we're on a roll here. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Depending on how the discussion goes, and we've got everybody in the audience, you may want to bump up the appointments prior, provided that everybody's here for the discussion, otherwise it can wait.
Okay. How far do you want to bump it up?
Bump it up to right after the town plan update,
Okay.
but we're missing a couple, so you may want to.
I believe
Play it by ear.
for the planning commission, Dan is going to be, Charles will not be here, Dan will be online. Is Dan Germain available?
He is online. But you have, like, John and Greg are in attendance, Robin Mosher's here.
Okay,
The other, so the actual appointment people are actually in attendance.
great. Okay. Okay, any other adjustments? Then let's go on to public comments. Are there any public comments at this time? I have 2. First one is just a recommendation. I enjoyed the rec department's concert last Sunday evening. It was very well attended, and I think there were 3 or 4 more Sundays, so be my 4. So please consider attending them. I know we have some rec department business later, but I did want to insert that. The next item is one that has kept me busy thinking about this for a number of weeks now. From where I sit, I feel that the tension between the select board and the planning commission has become toxic. And I'd like to make some comments about that. At an earlier meeting, I spoke of a potential benefit that can come from tension. And I hope to show this evening that, yes, the select board will take advantage of that tension that's there and move to a higher ground. I also remind folks that Dave is a hired professional, like the staff at Two Rivers, as well as Sean, who's on our staff. The select board manages the town manager. We don't have direct control of the regional planning commission, but certainly, you know, we fund their activities. So I feel we have access to that. So I would ask if someone has an issue with the work of the town manager, his staff, or Two Rivers, that they tell me as chair, and I'll bring the issue to my board colleagues for discussion. I feel it's unacceptable for members of the planning commission to refer to versions of the town plan by a person's name. What benefit other than causing controversy is hoped to be achieved by doing that? As chair, I don't refer to thinking on the plan or a version of the plan by Charles or Dan or Steve or Rebecca or John or Kate or George or Jay. So I ask the planning commission to show the same courtesy, please. I take responsibility for my own inability at times to stay on higher ground. I'm only human, and I mess up. If my work is unacceptable, then I will not be elected to office again. That's how I see it. If a commissioner's members' work is unacceptable, state statutes allow the select board to remove them. May that never happen to us. Finally, I was looking at Parker Palmer's work titled Healing the Heart of Democracy. He has 5 habits of the heart, and I'll end with sharing those. Create a sense of understanding about each other and the issues. Have an appreciation of others and their opinions. Work to have capacity to hold tension creatively. Recognize personal opinions, and to work to create a community. I'll strive to guide myself and my colleagues on the board, as well as town employees, to embrace those 5 habits of the heart. And I think we can move forward based on that.
Thanks.
Okay. Any comments from my colleagues? Okay. Good. Okay, let's go on to the town plan update. Again, I'm so well prepared, but now my papers are all shuffled too. I feel very important that we were beginning the discussion on rural use that, as mentioned numerous times in Chapter 1, Land Use, and Chapter 9, the Economic Development. I think the Select Board were discussing the changes to the language that were suggested there after hearing the public comments. At the last Select Board meeting, we had trouble talking about the concepts of rural use both today and in the future. I had sincerely hoped that we could have explored more ways to introduce flexibility while adhering to the plan concept. In recognition of the importance of the language of the town plan's land use and economic development chapters, I would like my colleagues tonight to consider the following. And thank you to Jim for mentioning this a number of times and helping my thinking become shaped that way. I think we should revert the Chapter 9 section on home occupation and home business back to the 2017 plan language. I think we should add the home business language that's to Chapter 1. I think we will then, assuming my colleagues will take an action on that, we'll request Sean to redraft the plan with the just mentioned changes, as well as the changes, the administrative changes and the administrative changes are already there, but the Clyde, Jenny, and Jennifer Wade have changes. Then, when Sean is finished with that, at an SB meeting, we can review that new draft, take action amongst ourselves, and approve that draft, then proceed to have a public hearing, which all of you know we need to do. And then, based on that public hearing, we can make final adjustments and proceed. I see this as a compromise that recognizes the good work of the commission, the many months of good work, and the town citizens' comments, as well as going forward with the forest block and energy chapters and numerous other changes. I also would request the Planning Commission to hold off on reissuing the Old Town Survey instrument and take the time to solicit professional help in developing a survey that addresses 2022 and going forward. The Planning Commission could work with the town representatives to develop a budget, and any contracts will be done by the town manager. A new survey would also enable the Select Board, and should the Conservation Commission and the Energy Committee to submit questions to the Planning Commission to include in the survey. I think a robust survey is what we've all been talking about, and to do it, we should do it right. And I think the results, I would hope, would provide a well-rounded and contemporary view into our town. Holding off until the next fiscal year would enable the Select Board to set aside funds that are needed for this purpose, as well as the Planning Commission seeking grant opportunities for support. And the Planning Commission can commence on the work on the survey, and with results begin work on the important topic that goes with rural use that we find ourselves struggling with right now. So those are my comments, and I'll just open it up to discussion amongst ourselves.
Okay, I have a question. So can we make final adjustments after the second public hearing? I thought we couldn't.
Unless you want to, but generally, once you go to the final public hearing, you're looking to kind of push it along, and then after the final public hearing, you would actually adopt the plan after that.
Okay. So then, a good point, Mary. So it feels to me like we would need to, once we got a revised back from Sean, that we could discuss it and open it up for public comments before the public hearing to see should there be any glitches or changes that emerge from that we haven't been aware of in the past. I don't want this to continue on and on.
I know, so I think that those glitches should have been already brought forward.
I would hope so.
So, I mean, what we'll be doing is just incorporating everything so far.
Yep.
And then presenting it, and we'll present it at a public hearing. So I don't see any need for additional, what else could come up?
The outcome's uncertain. If, the public comes back with something that we hadn't considered, and it seems pertinent and it seems important, I think we have the option at that point to make a change. We don't have a requirement to make a change.
Okay, because this could just go on and on, like, people who haven't been paying attention could all of a sudden pay attention and notice something, and then, this pushes this out. I mean, this literally could go on till 2025 before we adopt something. So that's my only caution there.
Right.
Okay. So I do have another question.
Sure.
Okay. What is the time frame for taking action on the revised plan? Are we under some statutory timeframe?
Do, I think it's a year, but if you follow this plan, you should have this hopefully wrapped up by a little bit after Labor Day.
And the public hearing, how, do we have to have that sooner than?
No, you
It's the
held
same
your
thing?
first one,
Okay.
but you would need to officially warn it. I can't remember the exact days, I think it's 15 days, but maybe 30, but you would need to officially warn it. So once Sean takes this, comes back to you next meeting, hopefully you all kind of nod your head and say, yes, this is what we talked about, and then we would turn around and warn it for a public hearing.
Okay.
And I think the absolute deadline is January 4th.
That would be so many days from that March handoff.
Well, it's 1 year from when the planning commission did their part. But I
So
don't
there's
want to
two-
talk about this over the whole.
Yeah, I don't want to go into Happy New Year.
Yeah, yeah.
That part. Mandy, any thoughts?
I am very much in agreement with it. I think it would be good to then be able to really take our time, or the planning commission, give them time to consider what folks in town have brought to their attention as concerns, and then they can deliberate in a good fashion, and I think it's a great idea.
It'll be interesting to get the results of the survey.
So I think we got a couple of topics on the table, right? I think town planners want to maybe start there, right? So I'm willing to, make a motion that we can then discuss, determine if that's the correct motion or not.
To say that last word.
So I'm willing to make a motion now based on what I think I've heard.
Yes.
Right? In my brain, I try to simplify everything, so I'm
Right.
gonna try to make it as simple as possible.
Yep.
And then if we second it, we can discuss it and determine if there are any parts of that motion that don't seem appropriate.
Mhm. Sure, sure. Are you talking about the recommendation also for delaying the survey, Mr. Mann?
I think that's a separate, so
I
if
agree.
there's
I
a,
agree.
that's a second topic that we should
Right.
get to.
Right. And I want to, I feel that that's a strong request, that I'm not sure we can mandate that, but I don't know technically. One way or the other.
Okay, so I think what I want to do is say, I'd like to make a motion that we remove the land use changes and related definitions from the 523 town plan draft, and revert to the land use language in the town plan draft as delivered by the planning commission at our 3/21/22 select board meeting. We then, and this is an addition that we've talked about in the past.
Right.
We then strike the portion of the sentence related to short-term rentals, which is in 2 places.
This has got to be the longest motion.
All right, you'll get a written copy. Because there's 2 spots, page numbers vary depending on the version you look
Oh,
at,
okay.
but there's 2 spots where there's a half a sentence around short-term rentals that isn't relevant. We then assign Sean to work through those changes from 2 Rivers, from Clyde Jenny's corrections, the census data changes,
Yes, that's very
Okay.
important, yes.
and then present back to us the final version.
I had thought that we should go right back to the 2017 and not to eliminate
I
the
think
contentious
I think
parts.
that's risky, because there could be things in that plan that are okay, right?
Well-
That we might now undo and have an unintended consequence.
Again, I'm trying to target the home business
Right.
specifically and remove the hospitality sort of pieces.
Right, but I think, well, I mean,
He
The
just
discussion's
means the
forward.
the 2017 part of land use. Not, you don't mean the whole 2017.
Oh, absolutely correct, just those,
Right.
those,
So,
that
just not-
verbiage that's associated with those topics.
The hospitality and home businesses. You're
Yes.
saying go back to the 2017 version. He's saying go back to the 2022 version that was submitted by the
Right.
planning
So
commission.
the reason I say that is because I don't know, without analyzing 3 versions of this plan, if there's something relevant in there that's supposed to be there that we might undo inadvertently.
Mhm.
Right, that's why I'm focused on the plan as delivered
Sure,
to us.
sure. Well, we could put a lot of responsibility on Sean, right? Basically say, let's go back to the 17. While we're doing that, we can begin to get a 1-page document or 2-page document that would show those differences and those
We could go
differences.
down that road, but I'm not, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous, right? Because I think we got probably a reasonable plan, and there's definitely changes since 2017.
Right.
And it, you know, it seems like we're gonna do some extra work to try to reconcile.
Sure. But again, when we had the 45 people here giving comments, we resulted in the reaction to the verbiage in that plan.
But the primary reaction is around logic, right? Which is that half sentence on short-term rentals, and the next paragraph down is statement on logic.
Right.
Now, when we see the finding, we could look at that statement and say, you know, it doesn't seem to fit. Yeah, let's take this out before we warn the public hearing.
Mhm.
But, you know, until you see it, I'm not sure.
Well, are we now saying the same thing with me saying go back to 17? And-
Yeah, my gut tells me, you know, I don't know if we break something by going that far back.
Well, they're words, and, you know, a strong diff between the files can analyze the exact words on that part.
But what benefit do you see by going back?
I think it would be eliminating controversy where we find ourselves today. I mean, I'm trying to offer this as a compromise,
Yeah,
and so both parties will sort of make a change in order to sort of
Seems
get back to a starting point.
It seems like this was acceptable seems like it was acceptable last
we
meeting.
didn't talk about this section.
But I think it came up as a comment, and
Well, it's really our discussion at this point.
I understand,
so
but
let's keep it here.
I think it's pertinent information. I think that this was an acceptable proposition last.
This
last meeting.
particular, let's not debate, all right, let's keep it here.
Jim, I feel pretty strongly that, that for targeted specifically in this area, we'll go back to the 17, and then we can have that discussion. And so I think you're saying one variation of what we would like to do, and I'm saying another variation.
I prefer to see the plan delivered to us finished. And if we, as a group, want to compare that plan to the 2017 plan, I think we should do it.
But Jim, isn't the whole idea for part of the reason for the survey?
Again,
Isn't
you know,
part of-
I don't
isn't-
think we need this.
isn't part of the
This is our
reason-
discussion on that.
Isn't part of the reason for the survey to do just that, to see, so you went from language and you added 8 to 10 people, which seemed to, generate some feedback. And my understanding was part of the survey was to get an idea as to how people felt about the rural area. And I think that what Phil is proposing here is to go back to the 2017 language and then go and take a good amount of time, get a good consultant, take a look at this, ask the appropriate questions, and then come back and move forward.
Can we have this discussion at our level, please?
I feel this is a discussion.
But I feel like I'm being lobbied and told why I'm wrong.
All right, so what are we, should we make a motion? Should we work on your motion a little more? Somebody second it, or not second it, whatever,
Right.
and then we'll have a discussion there.
Sure. So again, I'm asking him to amend his motion to go back to the 2006 for this language.
So you've heard my statement, I'm concerned about making an unintended, issue here by deleting something by accident, right? So my motion is really to go back to the plan that's delivered to us, and then we, as a group, can do our work and compare the two and see if there's something that shouldn't be there, or should be there. or we can go back and try to get it right, yeah. So what? Andy,
I personally would be comfortable with going back to the 2017 document, just listening to everyone in town and the concerns that they have. I think that we would not be doing them a good service to go to the document that was submitted. There was a lot of contention about it. A lot of people have come in and really expressed their concerns. I think by going to the 2017 version, and then perhaps we can, I think you said, bring the changes from 2017 to the one that was submitted in 2022, and look at what the changes are. But I personally would be comfortable with the 2017 and not the 2022, given public comments.
Which is fine. Public comments related, and the question for everybody, related to which topics?
I think that there's been a lot of concern throughout about, the home business, the lodging.
Yeah, so lodging and short-term rentals.
Right.
No pressure.
Interestingly, for me, I agree with both of you.
Right.
I agree with you too. So I think everybody's making really good points, and it's just, what would be the most efficient way to deal with this, I guess. So I'm gonna defer to Clyde. No, I think I more favor what you're saying because of the public comment. And your concerns, we're gonna.
That's fine, it's a little extra work.
Yeah.
I'll look at the 3 versions.
You've got nothing else to do, Joe.
I know. Need something to kill time. All right, let me try to amend the motion.
You can start right from scratch because we didn't,
You were listening first, sorry.
we didn't adopt it, so no, I was
Jim,
listening
How
intently.
about we ask Cheyenne to read to help you,
Okay.
to make sure
Or
we're.
he could start from scratch?
Yeah, I was gonna, it might be, because I could have
Yeah, yeah,
He did tell her he would provide her
Right.
with the,
right.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we revert the land use changes and related definitions back to the 2017 plan. Actually, so we won't have to strike anything because the sentence around short-term rentals will be gone, so period. We then have Sean work through the appropriate changes from Two Rivers, the updated census data, and Clyde Jennings' corrections.
With Jennifer Waits too?
I think hers was the census data.
Oh,
And I think we then review the plan. I would suggest in this room with the planning commission. Yeah. Well, publish.
We'll review it
Publish
at
it.
at a select board meeting. Yeah.
I won't get public comments.
is this part of your motion?
I'm kind of winging that as I go along, but I think we're saying we're gonna have a public review session. Okay. So I'll try to write that down, legible way.
I'll second it, how it was spoken.
I can rerun that tape.
Okay, I'm not sure I could restate that, but all
I'm
the,
gonna try to write that down.
Okay.
room has never been so
I
quiet.
was just thinking the same thing, it's remarkable.
Got a couple people with their hand up. Got Stacy Bradley and Dan.
Who-
Dan Gervais?
Stacy Bradley and Dan, sorry. They want to wait.
I think before I recognize them, I'd like to go on to talk about the town survey.
Hey Sean, do you know how to access all that Census Bureau information?
Yeah, I have, so most of the changes that Clyde and Jennifer submitted, I already kind of have a document.
Because it's hard to find that specifically what you need to do.
Yeah, it's definitely not, you have to do it.
Yeah, okay.
I think I have it. Do you want me to state it again?
Please.
I make a motion that we revert land use changes and related definitions in the 5/23/22 town plan draft to the language in the 2017 town plan. We then assign the town planning and ordinance administrator to update the plan, including Two Rivers feedback, updated census data, and Clyde Jenny's corrections. We will then review the changes in public session.
Wow. You did yourself proud, Jim.
Okay.
Oh no, I didn't hit save.
Oh, no.
No.
And Randy
Yeah, I'll
has
second
seconded.
that, yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Okay. Charles,
Yes.
were you here when I was talking about delaying the town survey?
No, I didn't hear that,
Okay. As chair, and I need some guidance on this, but I am requesting that you delay the survey, that you engage professional help, create a budget for what it would cost, entertain having questions from the Conservation Commission and the Energy Committee, some questions, not the whole survey, and write a new, basically new survey instrument, not to use the old one.
Is this a, I'm not sure from what you said there, Phil, if that's for you personally or if that's from the select board?
I'm asking the Planning Commission to hold off on the survey that you've been talking about for the last couple of meetings, your meetings.
So that, again, I'm unsure from the way you're saying that, whether you're asking me personally or is that a directive coming from the select board?
I can ask the select board for that. And I guess the question, which I don't know is a legal question, can I control that, can we control it from the select board? And, or should we just leave it as a request?
You can tell them that, you know, that before they spend their money, because ultimately that needs to be approved through the finance office and then ultimately through your warrants, you know, before they spend money that, you know, they go off and do due diligence and come up with a budgeted amount and then come back with
Right.
a plan.
Sure.
Just let me, before you go on, we need to revisit Jim's I don't think, did you vote on that or is it still open?
No, we voted on it.
Voted on.
Because I gave this some thought, before you move on, Jim, it's actually technically not correct. You don't want the entire plan to go back to 2017. And then add, I think that's what I heard the motion is, to go back to 2017 and add Two Rivers comments. And Jennifer Waite's comments, and Clyde's comments.
Well, we revert land use
Yeah, he just-
changes and related definitions to
Uh,
the 2017 language. I'm not suggesting we start,
in economic,
I'm not suggesting, no, we're not suggesting we start with the 2017 plan as a.
okay. So
We have two chapters that we need to address.
so there's some other language, shells and shunts and stuff like that, that you may not want to mess with. So, you know, do you want to revert back to 2017? My understanding, 2017 language with chapter 1, land use, and 2017, chapter 9, economic development. Both of those had similar language. That was controversial.
Get ready for an amendment.
Um,
So it should be those two areas instead of just the one. Do you agree with that?
I think,
That's what I was thinking when he made the motion, but again, not to be vague, I think we should be.
Do you want a friendly amendment?
I'm game, but it seems like it's getting complicated. So,
Maybe there,
I
it's inherently complicated, we can't
right.
get around that, so.
Yeah.
So saying that we revert to, I mean, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get out of the mess we're in.
Right.
Which I think is, you know, take out the land use changes that have been made to the 523, in the 523 draft.
But I think also, chapter 9 is part of the problem too.
Right, well, it's
So the enterprise,
tax land use. Right.
You have the
Chapter
rural-
9 statements and tax.
you have the rural enterprise, which had pretty substantial language in both chapter 9 and chapter 1.
Would come out.
Yeah,
So what we're really talking about is, again, the home business. So you want the home business to revert back to 2017. You want to take out, we'll put chapter 1 and chapter 9 back to 2017.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on this today, and those were the targeted areas for me. A lot of time yesterday and today. So do we need an amendment to clarify?
Give me a
So you're
second.
thinking yes?
well, if we've already voted on it, I think that means it's too late to make an amendment, so I think we probably just need an additional motion.
To add the
Yeah.
chapter 9 in.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Do you want to try that, or?
I think Mandy should rise to the occasion.
Oh, gosh. I make a motion that we include chapter 9. I have no idea where to go with this. In the,
Yeah, let's talk about what we're trying to do.
yeah, I mean, I know we want to include chapter 9 to revert back to the
So
2017.
what we're trying to address is removing land use changes that were introduced in the 523 draft, all right? And I think remove changes related to short-term rental and lodging. Is that it in a nutshell?
Yeah, and those are both addressed in, not just in chapter 1, but in chapter 9, so that's why
Right.
we didn't include it.
I agree. But reverting to language to address those issues versus just taking a whole chapter and plugging it in. Right? Because again, we don't know if there are other changes.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I think we're all in agreement, and
Yeah.
that's why
Yes.
I wanted to go to the
Yeah.
17, and then we could do the comparison.
So
Tom,
within,
you had produced documents in the last time that had that A-B comparison, and your work was great, and I think that's what we're looking to do right now. Dave, you had some comments?
the home business in the Hartland Town Planning Commission edition was, in my understanding, reverting back to 2017 in that motion that you made, is that
Right.
correct?
Mhm.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Charles, you were asking,
Yeah, basically, Phil, I was asking, was that a vote of the select board as a directive, or what was it? I didn't understand that part.
I would like to entertain a motion that we strongly request the planning commission to pull off.
Okay, don't we have to finish this one first?
Okay. Give me a second.
To add the chapter 9, is that what you're doing? Okay. I figured.
Are you typing up the amendment there?
Yeah, he is, yeah.
But as I said, I don't think it can be an amendment
To,
to the previous.
I think it has to be an additional.
An additional motion.
Yeah, so, under the motion, the way I read that, you would need to address the economic chapter.
Yeah.
And the Hartland Planning Commission language that's in there, you would like that to revert back to 2017.
so we need a motion a second motion to add to the work that we're doing.
No one's there.
Organize the strong suggest and maybe have something that is the financial support. Maybe the is the commission using their ways to watch stuff. And just sends
Got it?
okay.
So, take a swing and a miss here. So related to the previous motion, I make an additional motion to instruct the town planning and ordinance administrator to focus on the land use changes related to short-term rentals, lodging, and eliminating rural enterprises.
You don't want to mention chapter 19,
Uh,
9,
9.
Chapter 1 and 9.
and
In
9.
both 1 and
Yeah,
9.
chapter 1 and 9.
You're adverse to those? No, okay.
I just got a quick question.
Yes.
Do you know where we're going? I feel like,
So chapter 1 and chapter 9, we're going back to 2017 language and taking out all the changes.
really related to short-term rentals, lodging, and
Jim?
rural.
Jim, just as, I'll guide the employee, I'll set him to it,
I
yeah.
think I would
He-
rather the
Jim?
select board guide
Jim?
the employee on this.
Jim,
Jim, no,
we'll guide
he's the
him.
town manager. Sean is his
Okay.
employee.
So, all right, that's fine. So we're setting the policy.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Related to the previous motion, I make a motion to instruct the town planning and ordinance administrator to focus on the land use changes related to short-term rentals, lodging, and eliminating the rural enterprises in chapters 1 and 9.
Yeah, that sounds good, yes.
Yeah,
So
Okay,
second.
I'll second it.
yeah.
Okay. All in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, so you're getting an email copy of this as of Cheyenne.
Cheyenne, he's gonna give you.
Oh. Thank you.
Okay. Charles, you missed my opening comments where I was acknowledging the tension between the planning commission and the select board. And in an effort to sort of move this town plan forward and to create a more positive working relationship, I introduced the concept of those changes. And part of that compromise is I was strongly suggest that the Planning Commission refrain from pushing out a survey instrument that was used some years ago, and take the time to do a survey that reflects current questions from 2022 that many of them were just dancing around, and any questions about the future that the Planning Commission would like to have. So that was my request, hoping that that would be recognized and followed through by the Planning Commission.
I think that the Planning Commission is in agreement with you on that, and that's where the Planning Commission meetings have been centered, is what kind of questions to ask going forward. So I think we're in agreement on that, Phil.
Okay. We also, I was requesting that a planning grant, for covering some of the costs of the survey be pursued, and that assuming if you went for professional help, there would be a cost impact that we haven't budgeted, so that you create a budget in conjunction with the town manager, and that we plan for that for the beginning of the next fiscal year.
I think I'd suggest that we work directly with Sean on that he's...
That's a
that he's
As I just said to Jim, Sean is an employee of the town. Operations are, you need to work with Dave. And again, I mentioned pretty directly that I'm pretty tired of the Dave bashing that's been going on by the Planning Commission. I can repeat what I said earlier, but I won't. So my preference would be, I would like you to do this survey planning, create a robust survey, and interface with Dave. Whether Dave chooses to sort of assign Sean, that's fine. But that's Dave's call.
So can I ask a question now? Is it normally the town manager's responsibility to work with planning commissions on surveys?
I don't think we have any norm, whatever here.
So are we talking really about budgetary?
So, but Jim, if I can just, please let me just explain. So it's a contract or potential, work agreement, and that falls under the town manager. It's also a budgetary issue, and that more or less falls under me, provided that we budget.
Sure.
So,
And I would hope there would be collaboration on the questions between the select board and the planning commission. I mean, I'm not asking for oversight of what exact questions, but a collaboration on the questions.
So I think those three things that I just heard make sense, right? Budget issues, operational issues go to Dave. Collaboration is good, right? So, feedback from the planning commission?
Well, I think that my suggestion that we work with Sean is that he's been named the town planner. And if he's gonna be the town planner, then it seems that he would work with the planning commission.
Okay, I think we're jumping the gun here about who you work with. I think the important piece is, are you willing to sort of take this approach that we're requesting? And I think, Charles, between you and I, as chair to chair, we can have this discussion and move forward.
And yes, the planning commission is working currently on developing questions that address the current situation, yes.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what I'm strongly suggesting, and I would ask my colleagues to weigh in, is that we solicit professional help. I think any of us would say that surveys can be, pretty simple, but I just did a survey this week for a company, and it was an intelligent survey. They sort of followed up on the response that I made earlier. That's not what I'm talking about, but I'm talking about, like was done in, 8 years ago. How old is that last survey?
I think it's 2014.
Yeah,
I'm certainly open to that. One concern I have is that when we discussed that with you and Dave at the planning commission meeting, that Dave didn't think that there could be found more than $3,800, which is 2 years of the planning commission's budget to cover that, and it was assumed at that time that that would not cover a professional survey.
And that's correct. So that's why I said I don't believe that there's going to be that money in the town budget that just started on July 1st, so that we would be planning and solicit the funds for next fiscal year to come from next
So
fiscal
can I
year.
make a suggestion though? It seems like we're getting a little bit further ahead of where we're really at.
Well, that's what I just tried to say to Charles.
So the budgetary piece, right? If they're gonna solicit professional help, they get quotes. They come back with a quote. Yeah, this group needs to discuss it. And I think we need to decide, do we want to allocate money this year, or do we want it to wait until next year? I don't think we should make the assumption today that it needs to wait till next year.
Okay. You're right, we're projecting, and we know, I'm very concerned with just the way inflation is eating away with the things that we have budgeted.
As am I. I'm watching my gas tank and 401k go to zero.
Yeah, so I think that's the spirit that I'm trying to sort of bring across to you.
And could you tell me more about what you mean by delay? Can you give me a time frame that you're thinking about?
Well, it could be that the survey goes out next July 1st.
You're talking about a
Or worst case, the proposal someone starts working on professionally on next July 1st.
I mean, it's just not in the FY23 budget, so what do you want us to do?
Well-
Unless there's, if there's grant money.
The assumption was that we were gonna have to do it within the planning commission's budget.
But it can't be.
No, we can't go out to a professional organization to do it now.
Right.
But again, I think we need to see the quotes, because you're right, it wasn't planned for in the absolutely true. But there are surpluses that if we think it's important enough to tap into those surpluses to pay for it this year, we could do it. But we've got to make that decision once we see the cost.
Right.
But what's the hurry? Again, we keep going back to it's 2025, so.
And if we adopt this town plan,
Yeah.
then we can,
Do
it's a
it.
marathon and get it right than to rush.
Mhm.
And
So
then have the funds and have it done professionally with the, budgetary funds available, so you can have, a professional agency assist.
And do you
I
know,
think those are good points.
is there a grant that's available for this type of work?
We have to look into that. That's not something that I've looked into yet, no.
Okay, I think the Regional Planning Commission would know the answer to that,
Yeah, I
right?
think you're right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think we need a motion for this at all. Okay. Any other items with the town plan?
All right, well, there was another thing that's going after you, right? Well, that's the appointments, is
The
next.
appointments, yeah.
Can I make a motion that we open the windows?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay, as folks open windows, I'm going to ask Rob and then Charles yourself to introduce the candidates that you're suggesting for the two commissions, and then I'll ask the candidates to make some remarks. Thank you, Ralph.
All right, so we had an opening on the Conservation Commission beginning in April when John Beaton stepped down. There were a couple of posts to the listserv, and the select board, I think, also maybe David posted some requests for letting people know that there was an opening. We had 8 people respond, and for each of those, I followed up and talked to them a little more about what the commission did and what the time commitment was, etc. 5 of the people later withdrew either because they had other things that they needed to be working on. They didn't want to commit to that level. So we wound up with 3 candidates, Suzanne Enzer, Robin Mosher, and Rob Markeen. All 3 of them are very qualified, and when the commission started discussing these, that was the first thing everybody said, is we'd be happy with any of these candidates. But after several weeks of sort of talking with each other and talking at meetings about it, one candidate stood out for us, and that was Robin Mosher. And the thing that stood out was her enthusiasm. As you know, this is a volunteer position, and qualifications are great, but enthusiasm is what makes it work. And Robin repeatedly, she came to a couple of our meetings, she repeatedly reached out with information that she thought the commission might be interested in. She went over all our goals and looked at how she might contribute to all of those goals. And we just felt like that would be a really helpful thing in a commissioner. So that would be our recommendation.
But if we choose to fly in the face of good sense, to quote your...
Yes.
Why did you say that?
Well, in the past, the commission has made a recommendation, come to the select board with the candidate, and the select board has regularly just said, yes, that's great. But for the past couple of appointments, I have been reminded in no uncertain terms that this is a select board decision, that the commission makes a recommendation, but the select board can decide anything they want.
But the select board, as you said, hasn't. So I was kind of bothered by that.
Well, yeah, and I'm sorry that you're bothered, but I felt like we have been reminded unnecessarily strongly that we have no say in who the select board will appoint. We can make a recommendation, but it's totally your decision.
Okay, but that's technically correct, but in reality, the board's always just rubber stamped.
That's true.
Okay, so, but you were just throwing the dart back at us.
Yes.
Okay, because we don't get enough of that.
Oh,
Okay.
well, I can try to do more.
Okay, Rob. Okay. I'll be prepared.
And Mary, as I said in my opening comments, the select board also has, by state statute, can remove someone from a commission. So,
Like Rob.
Go ahead. Make my day.
I don't think that's ever happened.
okay. Is Robin here, and can we ask her?
I think she was going to be online, but I don't know.
She is?
She is online?
Yeah, but everybody's here.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay, well, we have,
Robin's here. Yes.
Can I make a motion?
well, not selecting in executive session.
Oh, we have to do it. Oh,
So
executive session where things aren't transparent.
we got a
Okay.
chance to sort of get through these. Okay, thank you, Rob.
Yes, thank you very much,
You
Rob.
bet.
Charles, do you want to?
Dan is waiting online so you speak. Dan Jarman is waiting online to speak.
Okay. Could you? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, hi. Yeah, the Planning Commission interviewed the three candidates. We met with all of them. They were all very candid, and we had a really good exchange. But we feel strongly that that there's one that's, we feel the most qualified, and that's John Maglioka.
Okay.
thanks, Dan.
Good. Okay, and then just to make sure it's clear, we have a executive session plan this evening, which we'll talk about and decide on the appointments on that. Okay, thank you to everyone on that one. Let's go back to, I guess, the budget update.
Sure, Martin?
Good evening.
Martin.
All right, revenues for the year. Construction permit, just quickly. We were hoping to hit 400, we got 370. We did a great job being the first year of having construction permit, so very exciting. It was accepted well.
Oh, really? It's
And-
only $10, right?
Yeah, right.
And there were how many?
37, I got 37.
Wow. But that can be for, like,
10 by 10 or bigger.
so it could be a lot of 10 by 10s.
Could be a lot of 10 by 10s.
Yeah, okay.
The rec department, I didn't think was gonna hit the mark, but they hit their revenues for the year, so revenues were good for the year. Any questions on revenues?
No, it's interesting, some of them were above the budget, which is always surprising.
Yes. Yeah, it was nice to see that.
Yeah.
The general fund on the expense, we did come over budget if you look at it, but we also had the surplus over the last couple of years that we have moved to 3 funds. The bridge fund got 50,000, the culvert fund 100,000, and the reserve $314,307. So obviously that puts us over budget because it's the surplus from the previous years. But if you pull that out, we were still under budget at about 98%. I won't know the final figure obviously until the accountants verify what we are, but we are under budget.
And when are they coming in? Next month?
Yesterday. Today,
Oh.
sorry,
Oh,
today.
really?
Yeah, we do, so this week would be, looking at everything. She grabs the data, goes through our processes, making sure that the checks are lined up the way they were supposed to, looking at payroll, and then in August, they would do the deeper dive. So this week's kind of the look at it, make sure our process is going properly in the office, and then next month, they're going more into the deeper part. This gets the setup, the staging for it. So Bonnie was here today, I expect her tomorrow, probably Wednesday. And then they'll be back on August, I think it's the 16th or so. And then we'll have our update probably in October.
Okay. So it's finalized roughly in that October timeframe?
Yeah. Yeah. It depends how far behind they are, if they got help. They had issues last year. But otherwise, the general fund came in under. Any questions?
Just gonna look at the board for a minute. It's something that would help me. I don't know if it'll help you. Yeah, we've got different types of funds, Mark, you just mentioned a couple, the bridge fund, the culvert fund,
Yes,
the 314,000.
the reserve fund.
Reserve fund. I think there's a highway reserve fund potentially, so what would, there may be some money from an oil spill, right? So what would help me is if we had just kind of a listing of the funds and what their, June 30th balance
So Jim,
was.
yeah, so you'll get the final balance for this year in a little bit after the audit.
Okay.
But the June 30th, 2021, actually this year's town report, we've got 2 boxes, you can grab one on the way out.
Well, I've got the town report.
Has all of those funds. As of June
Right, so
30th,
of
2000.
last
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm
And
interested
we'll
in
have
June
the-
30th.
Yep, we'll have that as soon as the audit comes in, it'll be
Yeah.
in the audit, and it'll be made available
I
to you.
can't picture the thing in my head completely, but like the oil spill money, for
Yeah.
example, I don't recall if that was in there or not.
That is the capital project fund.
Capital project.
Yep.
All right. So, the other thing that might be helpful, but again, it's just helping to educate me,
Understood.
is, for the funds and what the, the balances.
Yep.
What's within the scope of that fund if we needed to spend money and what's not,
It's not written down, but,
I mean, generally,
but in the audit, yep, it's actually under certain categories, but we can
Okay.
tell
So if
you,
that's something you could present to us and help educate us, that'd be, I'd appreciate it.
we'll have that for you in probably the fall time. For you.
Okay.
The highway budget, came in, just a little bit over budget for the year. We did have some grant money for the bridge, for the leaf blower, so they're actually under budget, I believe, for the year also. I won't know until I get my audited numbers, but my quick calculations, I believe they're slightly under, but like I said, until I get the calculated numbers, which I won't have for a bit. The equipment fund did come in a little bit over what we wanted to transfer over. Again, that will be audited checked by the auditors to make sure I have that on the right scale. Questions on the highway department?
No, but I'm trying to find there was something about the covered bridges scholarship fund.
That's coming up under the rec department discussion.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's good?
I'm
All set?
Okay. Yeah.
Everybody's worn out.
Oh,
You
thank
should
you
have
for your
gone
time.
first.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks,
you.
Thank you.
Martin.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your work.
Okay.
Helen's got a
Dave.
question.
Oh, Helen. She's been waiting a long time.
Okay.
Lauren Helen Esmond.
Yep. Should be good now.
Go ahead, Helen. You might be on mute.
Yeah, it says.
Sorry about that. How does the surplus, in quotes, affect the ARPA requests for the bridges and culverts, et cetera? Because they mention surplus effects. You understand what I mean? If there's surplus in bridges and culverts, can't that go toward what we want the ARPA funding to go toward? And the ARPA funding could go towards something else?
So we've had this discussion a couple times in the past. So we have a fund balance reserve fund that will cover any kind of a deficit that, well, right now there's a couple $100,000 in it, so it won't cover any old deficit. But if we run a deficit, then that fund is there to offset it. We set money aside last year based upon a roads committee recommendation. We started putting money, the recommendation is that we put money aside, $200,000. We put $100,000 aside for it this past year. So there's $100,000 in there.
In winter.
in the bridge and culvert, I'm sorry, just the culvert fund. Okay. So, but we have several culverts that could need work at any time over the next 5 years. We have one particular culvert that's pegged that the ARPA money would be useful for, and the ARPA money is going to go to other things. So if one of the other culverts that are an issue go, then that $100,000 is still there.
But I think, right, your intent was to have a kind of an emergency pool of money in case there was a bridge issue or a culvert issue.
Yep.
And that's what those funds are primarily for.
Yep, or if we were planning and there was, these projects are like $200,000. Usually, if it's outside of ARPA, you get a state grant, there's maybe a 20% match. So again, we've got several of these out there, so if we needed to do a few of these, then that money is there for the local match. And then we didn't need to raise that in the tax, in the budget itself. It would already be there to offset that.
Okay, got it. Thank you. I just wanted to say, please identify the people who were speaking in the Damon Hall, because sometimes I wasn't sure who Charles was until the conversation went on, and I presumed he was the board, the head board, the board of the. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Helen. Dave, do you want to introduce the topic for the rec department?
So yeah, John is here. John, you can come up to this table. So speaking of reserve accounts, we do have a couple of recreation reserve accounts, and I did give you a spreadsheet in your packets that lists 3 of these accounts. I will just mention that the money raised for these accounts is primarily due to John's efforts. He volunteers himself over at the Covered Bridges Half Marathon. And in return, we do get a donation from them. And during the pandemic, the early stages of the pandemic, he was able to get a $40,000 grant. And we split that grant up between these 3 funds. So the bulk of that is from the work that John has done. And we're here for basically transparency reasons. We want to move the money, and I'll let John pick it up from there.
Okay, so we recently received a $6,000 donation from Covered Bridges Half Marathon from this year's race, which was the first Sunday in June. For right now, that money is sitting in the scholarship fund. As you can see, we're a little over, that put us at a little over $22,000 in the general scholarship fund. We just did a year-end transfer for all of the scholarships that were given out for the year. I believe that was right around just under 4,000. And generally, the most we usually pass out in 1 year is around 5,000. So even if we do transfer out this money to special projects, we still have enough money to cover scholarships for potentially the next 3 years. And we plan on helping with Covered Bridges Half Marathon for the foreseeable future. So this should be a steady stream that comes in that gets to go to one of our special accounts. And then the reason for wanting to put it into special projects will be for the walking path, to reestablish the walking path, which I think was just a real crowd pleaser when we put that in a few years ago, a home run. It'd be great to get that revamped, and I think everyone, the public would really be happy to see that done. And then also hoping to resurface a basketball court over at Courier Park in North Hartland, and I think everyone knows the cost of materials and the cost of labor and everything has just skyrocketed in this last year and a half or so. So putting these additional funds into the special projects just give us that little extra nudge to make sure that we're able to keep pushing forward with our park maintenance and stay up to date with everything.
When you refer to scholarship funds, are those for the programs across the board, the ski program, the after-school program, how do you manage those?
So we have 2 separate scholarship funds. The rec scholarships go for after-school programs, summer camp, or some of our, lots of our off-site activities like swim lessons at the aquatic center, or going to the bowling alley, or horseback riding and those things. And then the Ray Sapp Scholarship Fund, that was a lump sum that was donated from the Cover Bridges Half Marathon in memory of Ray. And that goes specifically for ski runners scholarships. So that one just has one destination, which gets kids on the mountain to learn to ski with the winter activities program that we have with Hartland Elementary School. So the school provides the busing over to the mountain to, I'm just gonna say S6, because they just changed their name.
Oh, yeah.
So, but then these funds would then pick up the lift and lesson fee for anyone that applies for that scholarship. So we have the two separate ones, yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Okay.
Kind of a related question. So it makes sense for me to transfer money. But in your special projects fund, do you have what you need to do the projects you need to do in the next year?
We'll need a revised estimate on the walking path. I think the cost of materials, the hard pack has gone up, but the bigger piece will be the cost of diesel and the trucking expenses for moving all the materials in and moving the spoils out as we take the sod and like whatever, the silt and everything that's washed on top of the path and remove that. I think that's gonna be the real wild card in the expenses is the trucking expenses more than anything else. So the estimate that we got for the walking path to be refurbished 2 years ago was $22,000. I'm sure like anything that's happened we might be upwards of 30 at this point.
Well, if you don't have the money for it, would you consider doing part of it? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
if you go out to bid and it's just too expensive to do the whole project, could you just do part of it?
We could look into that, because the project, the request for pricing that we have in place also includes some drainage work on the bank by Route 5, because we get a lot of, that field easily gets flooded with washouts on heavy rain days. What we need is drainage where the culverts empty out underneath Route 5, so some sort of like 6-inch minus or some sort of something for everything to drain down instead of continually washing out. So whether it's a ditch or something along those lines, that's also been included in this walking path project. But it would be very beneficial to the soccer field to help keep the field usable on rain days, but it would also prevent those sections of the walking path from getting washed out on the heavy storm days as well.
All right, so my question is, you wouldn't just say, we're not gonna do anything because we don't have enough money for the whole project, right? Is that right?
Yep, I would, if that was the case, if we were not able to do it all in one swing, I would be in favor of doing what we could do, which would probably be starting with that drainage, because you would want to get that drainage in place to protect the path once we put it back in. So if that was the case, then
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Oh, wait, I have another question.
Maggie?
I do not have any.
No more questions.
So what, I think I've asked you this before, but I don't remember your answer. What do you do for the covered bridges?
Lots of meetings coming into the year, and then this last year we hadn't had the race. It had been virtual for the previous 2 years. So helping find and place other volunteer organizations. For example, the Hartland Boy Scout troop comes and helps us out at the finish line, and then they also receive a stipend, a donation for their services. So our responsibilities for our rec department are the finish line. We pass out finishers t-shirts. This year was finishers hats. But with having not had the race in a couple of years, a big piece this year was reaching out to local sports teams that are looking for fundraisers, or any sort of community organization that was looking for some money for some of their projects that they had in place. So that was a big piece of what we had to do this year, is get your volunteers, because you've got water stations along the way. But then in the weeks leading up to the Covered Bridges Half Marathon. It's over, the finish line is at the Quechee Polo Grounds. So we measure and stake and ribbon parking lots out there, work with the other recreation departments doing that. Go pick up finish line, food and snacks and supplies, get a couple of U-Haul trucks and bring everything down there. But it's a lot of organizations that have been helping out for a long time. So it was actually really fun to be involved with it again. I missed that event.
Yeah, the event has grown such that it's capped now within the first day of registration, and it has a reputation for being run well. I ran the first 2 or 3 versions and started over at the Lincoln Covered Bridge, and I think we only had maybe 100 runners at the time, so it's a little bit of a different phenomenon, and it's great that the board of the Covered Bridges recognizes the importance of the community, of keeping health activities going in the community. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I didn't realize you had to do all that work.
Well, I only know all things finish line. I do not know things at the start line. That's at S6. So that's a whole different world to me. I'm only at the polo grounds for the finish.
You're just there for the music.
Yeah, we get a band, which is nice. Yeah.
And Dave, we don't need an action on this. This is just information.
I would like action
To transfer.
to transfer the money, please.
Okay.
The other thing I would,
Again, just internally, the money is committed or given to us by Covered Bridges, and we kind of use the scholarship fund as a default. Again, that's gotten, we never had it this flush, we've never been this endowed before, so this is a really good thing. But again, just so that we're transparent and John lets you know that where we want this money to go, and you know, we're not just working behind the scenes and you pick up next year's annual report and you're like, oh geez, look at that fund. You know, we come in front of you and kind of let you know what we'd like to do with this money.
yeah, that makes sense.
That's great.
I just want to throw out a comment really for the select board to say, if we try to do the walking trail this year, in his little budget, we do have the option to put some ARPA money in there to finish it off.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess.
discussion for another day,
Yeah,
just,
Right, and that is on the ARPA top 15.
yeah.
So-
Right, so I could make a motion if people are ready.
I'd love to hear it. And
Excellent, it's not as good as being as good as the last two. I would like to make a motion that we transfer out $6,000 from the Rec Center Scholarship Fund into the Rec Center Special Projects Fund.
Is it 12,000 or
Minus 6.
so should it be specifically mentioned as Covered Bridge donation? Covered Bridges donation?
From the Covered Bridge donation.
I would love to second that, because that's just well done.
It's going
Special projects, recreation special projects.
All in favor, say aye.
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 It's unanimous. John, thank you. And
Yeah, thanks a lot.
The waiting's got more.
yeah, I was
Oh,
going to
there's
say,
more.
that was A,
Oh.
now we're on to
Oh.
Feels like the price is right.
the not so cheery stuff about the after-school program. I'm not sure where that stands.
I
right
thought it
now.
was cheery.
Well, we did just make an offer to someone on Friday, and they accepted today to be the director for the after-school program. So we've got our head counselor in place, and we've got a couple more people interested. Dave and I went to the school and had met with the school powers that be in an attempt to try to figure out what we need in terms of a collaborative effort to keep this program going. We went through 7 different employees last year, and then when we lost everybody right before April vacation, the people that were leaving they were going to a better place for themselves. They were leaving for full-time jobs with benefits, and you can't blame them. And I think there's still been a lot of shuffling going on The part-time, world of part-time labor, people keep raising their wages and making better offers, and it's like a cycle going round and round, and people are moving. So we had brought adjusted wages, which had been approved earlier in the year. So with our adjusted hourly rates and wages, I think it feels pretty good that we're going to be able to get people in place for the start of this school year. The challenge is finding somebody that's available to work from 2:30 to 5 in the afternoon, because there's not many other jobs that supplements. You know, it's right in the middle of the day. So what we truly really need are people that are willing to come from working at the school to working at the rec center and just make their day 2.5 hours longer and supplement their income. And they're also the people that work at the school are familiar with the children, they have the relationships, they have the training we need. So really trying to foster that relationship and grow that way. Because we have traditionally always had employees that have been at the school and also worked at the rec center, but just so happened this last year that some of those people turned over and moved on to new career opportunities. So if we can replenish those types of the people that work in both places, I think that's really what's going to be key for the after-school program moving forward.
Yeah, please.
So, if somebody comes over for the school, is that, they have 2 part-time jobs, or do those jobs become one?
Well, we pay them separately from the school. So somebody that works at the school might only be part-time, but they also might be a full-time. Traditionally, it's usually a paraeducator, or now they have there's behavioral interventionists, but those are the paraeducators, the behavioral interventionists are usually the employees that we get.
So they're getting their benefits through the school?
Yes.
Okay, so I was just thinking if it was 2 part-time jobs that could be combined in one, and then you could offer health and all the other benefits, that would be more appealing. But you're already saying they're getting all those benefits anyway.
Yeah.
But it's on a prorated basis at the school, or
I mean,
are those jobs?
It's 2 different
It's
kind of
2.
legal entities.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's just like a job to 2 different companies.
So that's the tricky piece, because it's the after-school program is a rec center program, so they become part-time employees for us, as opposed to like if the school hosted the after-school program, then they could contract that in, and then they could piece together 2 part-time positions. But the rec center has hosted the after-school program for the last, as long as I've been a part of the rec center, so at least the last 13 years.
So if somebody's working until, let's say, 2:15 over at the school, 5 days a week, is that considered a full-time job over there?
I believe so. I'm not sure what they need to get for hours within their week to be full-time. Probably right around 32.
Yeah, I don't know really.
You need to get 30 to get the health insurance, but the paraeducators are mostly full-time over there.
I believe so.
The problem we're having, I think what I just heard John also say, is that they release the teachers, they're keeping the teachers there. Their labor contract runs like an hour beyond when the kids get out.
Mm-hmm.
So when the kids got out and the teachers got out, or the paraeducators got out at the same time, they used to be able to both come over, and the paraeducators would be able to start the after-school program when the kids got there.
Right.
Now there's a lag time. We have like an hour before they can come over. So we've been working with Christine and now Lindsay, trying to get them to release them early so they can come over and work there.
And then you have the supervisory issue where the release time for Hartland and the supervisory union is different than some of the surrounding areas where you could get.
Exactly. So this past year, Windsor Southeast released at 2:15, and the employees are contracted till 3. So that was a little bit of a hurdle in this process, is because anybody that did work there and that wanted to work for us, they needed to get their contract amended to be able to leave when the school day ended instead of 3 o'clock.
So is there any reason to keep this in the rec department? Should we just say, school, you take it over, and then it'd be seamless.
This was part of the discussion that Dave and I had when we went and met over at the school, and I don't think that they felt they had the capacity to host or were prepared to take over the program at the moment. But we do have plans to, the immediate plan is for the rec center to make our best push effort to put something in place for this year, but then also during this year, create a more sustainable model moving forward, which may very well be the school taking it on as their own program and hosting it there in their building. But that is, so hopefully we get the program in place at the recreation department this year, and then we figure out something that's more sustainable moving forward.
That was not a leading question on my part. I had no idea
That's
that you
okay.
guys had that. It's just my intelligence coming from it.
Yeah.
Before we go to Old Home Day, any other questions on the episode?
No, I appreciate the update.
Yeah, really appreciate you, thank you.
Old Home Day.
Felt like it was well attended. 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock is always controlled chaos in a sense. Everybody from town's coming in all at the same time, and people are looking for me. Vendors are looking for me at the rec center, and people are looking for me down at the parade. So move from one place to the other, and then breathe a sigh of relief once the parade starts. But felt like we had a lot of participation in the parade this year, which was good. We had more food than last year, which was nice, so the lines weren't there. I think the portable mini golf was a big hit. Tractor pulls were back. Every year there's always something you want to think about for next year. I think it's like the parking and making sure the parking, we're on top of everybody finding their place and keeping those aisles and rows so they don't get blocked off, nobody gets parked in or obstructed. It seems to be a challenge the last couple of years, but it seems like it was received well from the community. I think the fireworks were a big hit. We've had a lot of positive feedback on the fireworks as well.
Yeah, I do worry about the parking because I had a mix-up with my partner and arrived at 9:45 and was almost in one of the last rows on the field. Maybe it was 10 to 10. And I'm just conscious if it was ever a wet couple of days preceding, do we have any ideas of how we could handle more parking, or, and if it was bad, we have enough antique tractors around to pull people out.
Good point.
Yep. I think parking had been a discussion that had been happening years before. I think everyone was talking about a lack of parking in town for special events. I think what is the rec center itself, I think we have 30-something spaces, which really disappears quickly. We quickly filled up the parking lot last night for the concert, but our only real overflow was over by the library, the barn road, and those soccer fields. Yeah, because we seem to always end up with people right along the road, going up the Hartland Peachy Road. Yeah, it all happens in about 2 hours. It's quick.
Great. And my important question is, I was asked if there was a competition for the floats, and if there was, who won?
We had discussed about having a prize for the most patriotic float, and I think that sort of went by that kind of got lost in the shuffle.
Okay.
Yep.
Where did those Disney characters come from?
I had them written down. They contacted me. It was a group, and then what was it? It was like the tea room. I don't have it in front of me, but there was like a group that contacted me that wanted to be a part of the parade, and there was some sort of a Little Miss New Hampshire that was in the mix with them as well. I don't have my notes in front of me. Yeah.
Little Miss New Hampshire?
A version of Little. There's many Little Miss New Hampshires apparently. This was one specific.
I'm gonna be careful with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's great.
Yeah.
It was really, really good parade.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And as I mentioned earlier, I couldn't believe how many people were at the concert on Friday or Sunday evening. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was a great turnout last
Yeah.
night for
Yeah,
Carlos.
Carlos.
It seems everybody likes to
Right.
come out for Carlos and Friday. So.
Hometown guy.
Yeah, that was a great kickoff for the concert series. We got 4 more.
And John assured me that he's going to be working on getting David Byrne, and maybe with or without the Talking Heads coming
Yeah.
next year.
What?
You haven't heard this yet?
No, how about Lyle
I'll
Lovett?
have to up the budget,
Yeah, just
slightly, a little bit for the record.
We'll need a lot more parking. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, good point. Yeah, forget it.
Okay.
John, when are the concerts? Sunday at?
Sundays at 5 p.m. we have the Gully Boys. They're not too far away. They're from Barnard, Vermont.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Next item is the fiscal year '23 tax rate.
Yeah, so you should have a copy of that in your packets, and I have one.
Okay, Todd, you good?
I just have a quick question. I don't want to interrupt in the middle of another topic, but I just wanted to let you know, I thought everyone who was going to be applying for the thing was going to get a chance to talk, and I'm not going to talk substantively because I know you've moved on from that topic.
Yeah.
But since I did bother to prepare something and give it to Dave to share with you,
We do have it in
We
the
do,
packet,
yeah.
our packets.
that I gave tonight.
This is something additional. that
Oh,
you
no.
just-
No,
that
I
you
just, yeah,
that you
I
just
wanted to
heard.
share with you what I was thinking, my thoughts on what I would
Yeah.
do and stuff, and since you have no opportunity to do that now, and again, I don't wanna talk out of turn, but at least, since some of it is written down on that piece of paper when you go into executive session, I just wanted to make sure you were aware I brought something tonight that I was hoping
Okay.
you could look at.
Great,
Okay.
we'll certainly
And
consider
I,
that.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. And
No.
Thank you.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Dave, you were saying,
So the tax rate for the fiscal year here, Phil, you can take this, you'll need to sign it at some point here. Fiscal year 2022, 2023 tax year. It's fairly simplistic. We get the grand list from Stacy and the listers. And from that, on the municipal grand list, we essentially just take our budgetary numbers and divide it into the grand list number. The school tax rates actually come directly from the state of Vermont. So we get that, and we get that in early July. So that is plugged in directly from them. The county tax, again, is what we need to raise for the county, and again, we divide that into the municipal grand list. The one that kind of fluctuates is the local tax. That is made up, so we have a tax exemption for the Eshwa Bog, the Nature Conservancy, I believe it is.
Yes.
It has a tax exemption on that property, and also the veterans get an exemption as well. Now, Hartland voted many years back at this point in time, so the veterans not only are exempted for under 10 grand, but they're exempted for over 10 grand as well. The other taxpayers pick up that amount, that's why it's there as a separate tax rate. So that is what the local tax is for, and that's how we come up with that number. We get from the state of Vermont, who is a veteran, and again, we have an assessed value on the property for Eshwa Bog. Two things, the tax rate for homestead actually stayed relatively the same compared to last year. I don't have a last year's comparison in front of you. However, the school tax rate for the homestead remained relatively stable. They had some surplus monies that they used. And in the local tax rate last year and maybe 3 years prior to that, the North Hartland Dam, we made up revenue made up revenue essentially for the North Hartland Dam because there was an agreement with the North Hartland Dam. We have since moved over to just a basic property assessment on that. However, that agreement did not include the school side of that. So we needed to make up the school side. The agreement, which was signed close to 15 years ago, included, it was for everything, but legally we can't do that for the school side. So we flagged that 3 or 4 years ago when we were making up for that, but we've since have kind of dislodged ourselves from that agreement. The agreement ended essentially this year. We moved over to an assessment, and this is part of the grand list at this point in time.
So
A little bit of change from the past.
So it'll go with the school.
So we're now, that's being raised, yeah, that we no longer have to make up that differential a little bit more. So because of those two reasons, the school homestead rate staying relatively the same and the local tax coming down a bit. Those that live in town have a relatively stable tax rate. The non-residential went up a little bit, which is good. I shouldn't say that for any second homeowner, but you know, in recent years past, the non-residential has actually been lower than the homestead, which I can't get my arms around that really, but for us, it leveled off a little bit this year.
Cool.
So we do need you guys to approve it and sign it.
Yeah, your opening comments, you really said it was a matter of doing the math on that part with those exceptions that you mentioned, or the changes, not exceptions. Any questions?
No, I mean, this was the budget that was already proposed and voted on, now just put it into tax rate. Can you lower my taxes? That's my only question.
Yeah.
Don't answer right away.
You can put it in front of the voters, or we can add you to the local tax
But I gotta
if they
get like
pass it.
1,500 signatures or something.
You're gonna need to buy a few more pens and pass them out.
Start charging dollars.
Could be an attraction to get volunteers for town, so we could sort of say we could serve on a commission or the select board and get a new local tax break.
Wow.
I think we would be written up in the Valley News very quickly.
Inundated. So what's the percentage? Like, should I ask it?
I don't know what the question is.
So are we going up by 1% or 2%?
We didn't, sorry, we didn't do that math for him. But we can do that and send out an email to you guys tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again, the homestead stayed relatively the same.
Okay, so can I get a motion to accept the 2022-23 tax rate as presented?
I'll make that motion.
And second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Let's get this signed. And then we'll go on to the manager's update.
When you need it. So I think we heard a lot about recreation, so I won't touch on that. I thought John gave a nice little update there. Highway, again, we continue to focus on Jennyville Road. Green Mountain Power is looking to bury the utility lines. We talked a little bit about that last meeting. That's also hopefully going to be done in conjunction with VTEL. However, the latest that I've heard, and this is just par for course, and one of the reasons why I spoke a little bit about an 1111 permit last time is they don't completely know where the line is. So we're going to spend a little time out there in about 2 weeks kind of looking with Green Mountain Power and VTEL. They do have some old copper line that's there, but that's no more. They do have a local line that runs through aerial through the woods that's with Green Mountain Power, but they also have basically a major through line that is towards Ogden Mills Road, if you're familiar with Jennyville Road. It's on Dutcherfield's side of the road, and we're just not sure exact location and how deep it is. So this is kind of a problem that we run into VTEL now. The only thing I'll say is, to their credit, back in like 2003, when they went to bury these, they did get approval from the select board. You know, whether they carried it out the way they should is always kind of questionable, but that being said, we are looking at that stretch. That stretch does include about 10 culverts. We're looking to swap out those 10 culverts. We did bring those culverts in. I put this into my update to you. Cost was actually more towards 17,000 than 15. That is part of a grants and aid project through the state of Vermont. Now, it's possible, just due to culverts are already at 17 grand, so it's possible that we also need to cut back on this project, depending on how the bids come in, but we'll continue to eye that. We can always use culverts in other places, and they're very hard to get at this point, so we'll certainly hold on to those if we don't use them all in the Jennyville Road project. So just stay tuned. I believe we'll get through it, but again, we got culverts, again, 10 culverts, and depending on where that VTEL line is buried, may create some issues as far as trying to swap those out.
Allegedly, VTEL is gonna pull up the copper lines. I don't know when, but within the next year or two.
I was gonna make a smart ass comment.
That's fine.
Although not to you, not about you, but, you know, maybe the copper has value these days, they're gonna pull it up, but,
Use it somewhere else.
you know, they've got like one engineer, and she's really kind of at her capacity, and you know, getting her to focus on any one particular project is very difficult, just based upon that hierarchy. So I don't place my blame with her, that's for sure. Finance, we're down to like 80,000 delinquent taxes, which is like, for this time of the year, is like really good for us.
That's fantastic.
We are still kind of going through the delinquent process. If all those were to pay, it would bring us down at least another 40 grand. And with these, VHFA, if they're eligible, is through basically an ARPA program, is picking up delinquent taxes for people if they meet the criteria. So if anybody is in trouble with their delinquent taxes at the moment, and we do send, Martin has sent out notices, does go out with a legal notice from us that this program is out there, you know, should help them and us as well collect delinquent taxes.
I have a question there.
Yep.
Do you think it's easy for people to get through that process?
It is, knowing some of the people that have gone through that process, I don't think it's
not hard.
overly hard.
I don't think so.
Great.
No, we've had 4 people, 16,000 come in from that program.
Wow, that's great. So then they can stay in their homes?
Yes.
Wow.
Is this a one-time program, or is it just until the money runs out kind of program?
I think it's probably till the money runs out. It's about $50 million, I believe, 53 million.
No, I'm glad. It's always
That's so
hard
good.
to take that next step.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So I hate to, it seems like ARPA gets thrown out every minute, you know, but I will bring this up. You know, when we went through the ARPA process, I was a little disappointed that premium pay for the employees wasn't a part of that discussion. I'm okay with that. It would have been difficult, you know, to look back, you know, how far back do you look? However, at 9.1, 9.2% inflation at the moment, I think that it's something that we may want to keep in mind for the employees. We set the budget, this is a difficult part, we set the budget and, you know, it goes to the select board about the third week, right around Thanksgiving. And we look at the CPI for that budget in about October, November, and it was 4.65, 4.6. and has gone up steadily since then. You know, so that didn't kick in also until just last Thursday for these guys. So they just, the 4.6 whatever just kicked in July. So we're already kind of sucking wind on that. So gas is starting to come down. But from CNBC, I have learned that the core inflation is still high and still increasing. So it's something that I think that, you know, we've spoken about inflationary measures for paving. We've spoken about it for other budgetary things. You know, I had Martin look at if we increased it another 3.5%. It was about $55,000. Not anything, obviously, it's not an agenda item tonight. It wasn't even in your written thing, but it's something that I've kind of, since this has gone out, I've kind of struggled with. It's something I think that we need to just kind of keep an eye on.
And I'm assuming that we would also have to do some research as to how to make that payment. Would it affect pension or not pension, and those kinds of things.
Yeah, do you know? Do you have any answer to that? Because I was wondering the same thing. How would that actually be done?
I'm not sure I'm asking the question, other than I know it's a tough, there's variations of how to do it.
Yeah, I think that there is a pathway, since that, you know, one of the primary, you know, spelled out in the original document that pay to employees was to be a part of this. So there's, you know, every state and federal agency is unionized to some extent and has a retirement in there. So I think that there's a workaround in there. I don't have that immediate answer, but again, it's just, I don't think not looking to try to solve that, but I think, again, I think it's something that we should
So future agenda.
continue to watch, yeah, future agenda item.
That's sobering.
Yeah. Dave, is that it?
That's all I got. Easy on you.
Okay.
Mary's got the motion for it.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, you got correspondence. And I also, you guys may want to try and figure out how you'd like to deal with this. I had one come in today, so that can go, I think it could be a part of next meeting's discussion, or I can give it to you now.
Correspondence?
Yeah, it was a correspondence that literally was handed to me at about 4:15.
What's the nature of it?
It pertains to the town plan, from Shane and Corey Barrows, interested in purchasing a piece of property on Clay Hill Road, fairly large parcel.
Well, we could accept the correspondence now and just not discuss it now, right? I mean, you know.
You can accept it, and I can put it in your packets, you know, for next meeting as well.
That might be the best thing to do, especially if we're going to an executive session. And then I'm looking at one from on lodging and rentals from Todd. Yeah, I was going to say catch it from it. That doesn't roll off one.
That's not here.
Yeah, I read this today. I see this as an informational, Todd's writing. Did he sign it? Yes, he did.
Yeah, I didn't get one of those.
Um,
Do you have another one? Can you-
I do.
Thanks. All right, so you want to go into executive session now? Because,
I think so. I am, I'm somewhat aware of the Shane and Corey Barrows, but again, I'm not just looking at it. I think we should delay and process it at the next meeting.
okay.
Okay.
So what do we have for the minutes for correspondence?
I think we have the lodging rental document from Fact Sheet Farm dated July 6th. And we received but did not process the July 18th document from Shane and Corey Barrows regarding no subject.
So this was in our packet already, this thing from Todd.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was something new that he presented.
He did.
He's got this, it was a part of a discussion on appointments. This is an executive session.
Oh, okay. So do you know what's correspondence? Okay. All right, so I'd like to make a motion at 7:30 that we enter into executive session to discuss the appointments to the Hartland Conservation Commission and Hartland Planning Commission under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A, 3 of the Vermont statutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.